Welcome everyone to this Infernalist Demon Form leveling guide. Full disclaimer before we dive into the nitty gritty, and that is this guide is specifically targeted at Standard League with the trade system. So if you're looking for a solo self-found approach or don't like using trade, you may want to close the video right now. Okay, that aside, Demon Form seems to be gaining a lot of popularity of late, especially judging by the trade prices of some of the items you need, which is a bit of a challenge. But, you know, there's a lot of endgame guides out there at the moment, lots of awesome and cool ideas floating around, including my own guide, which is a sort of entry-level endgame build. But one question I keep getting asked is, well, endgame's all nice and fun, these builds look interesting, but how do we actually get there? The campaign is a bit notorious, especially in normal difficulty starting off fresh, as being quite tricky, and definitely newer players, without knowing what to do, can struggle through it. So this guide is going to try and help give you an idea of one approach. This is my approach of leveling with an Infernalist and actually using Demon Form throughout the campaign, and what I actually went about to, I guess, succeed through the campaign. That said, what I've actually done here, and I'll be showing some video snippets throughout, is I actually re-rolled completely fresh onto Standard League. I was originally a solo self-found player. I've got I think a level 90 Infernalist on solo self-found, so re-rolled completely fresh, no existing gold, currency, or no tweak gear to start off with. So I'll be actually outlining the full process of what I went through to get through the campaign. To assist me in that, and all of you, what I've actually got here is a Google Docs, which I'll make public, so you'll have full reference to it as well, and this will actually serve a little bit as my script throughout the video. As you can see, there's quite a bit of detail here, so bear with me. This will be quite a deep dive, and you'll basically hear me talking a lot. So if you're here just to see some flashy snippets of video at ideal times making me look good, that's not what you'll see. Likewise, there's a supporting Maxroll build, which I'll also link to the video and to the Google Doc, so everything will be available. So diving right in, basically starting at Act 1, we've got nothing. What you'll be starting with is the base wand and scepter that you receive. This will give you chaos bolts and a few skeletons. There's not really too much to be said about this. You don't have much options here. You'll be using chaos bolts quite a bit and using your minions as a bit of a meat shield. This will only last for 5-10 minutes or so before you get your first uncut skill gem. So not much to cover there. What I will actually be centering the whole guide around in terms of skills is the spark skill, which, if you're not aware right now, is very meta. For a reason, it is, I dare say, above and beyond any other skill in comparison in terms of its output and ease to build around. Basically, spark, for those of you that are completely new and unaware, fire some lightning sparks out from you, and the key reason I believe why this is so strong is the damage that it deals and is listed in the skill isn't the damage you put out as a whole, it's the damage per spark. So firing multiple projectiles, each of those projectiles can actually rebound off terrain and hit the same target. So if you can imagine for bosses, having one skill firing multiple projectiles, all rebounding all over the place, hitting the boss, leads to a lot of output DPS and makes this ability very good. Likewise, because it actually spreads out and rebounds off terrain, leveling with it is fantastic. Very, very good for map clearing. Basically, it's impossible to miss targets because you pretty much just spam it around you and it covers the whole map. So very first uncut skill gem you'll be getting, you'll be taking up Spark, and the next one you'll be taking up is Flame Wall. And the reason for this is Flame Wall actually acts as a bit of a supplementary ability. Well, pretty much all the skills that we'll be picking up will be supplementary abilities to Spark, enhancing its damage. Flame Wall itself, what it does is any projectile that passes through it adds fire damage. So you can imagine again, casting one spark once, number of projectiles leaving it, passing through a flame wall, which itself does a little bit of damage and has some decent output early game. And then you're getting all the extra fire damage from the flame wall itself. So going back here, if we try and jump ahead into the video, you can see the general kind of gameplay that you'll be looking to achieve is you'll be placing your flame wall either on top of yourself or on top of a mob, and you'll be trying to cast your sparks through that flame wall. Pretty self-explanatory. Another ability you'll have early on is Unearth, which I believe you just get as a guaranteed drop almost at the very beginning. You won't be using this long, so I wouldn't focus on it too much. I don't want to talk about it too much, but one thing it is good for is for actually raising minions from dead corpses around you. If I could potentially find a spot where I may actually use it, you can see me using it here, generating all these minions. The main reason I use it early on, and it helps quite a bit, is not so much for the DPS output of the minions, but they provide you a little bit of a meat shield and defense to keeping mobs off you, so you can sit there casting flame wall and your sparks. One very quick point to also mention very early on is Spark will drain your mana quite a bit. You may actually use the Chaos Bolt off your wand, especially in the very first 5 or so levels, as your main damage, and only throw out a Spark on bigger packs. Which actually leads me to the next point. In terms of the very first uncut support gem you get, you probably want to be putting, at least my preference is, Inspiration into it, which what that does is give the skill less cost, makes it easier to spam it. Beyond that, in terms of the support gems that you'll be using for Spark and Flame Wall in the early days, Controlled Destruction I find very good. You basically won't have a lot of crit chance, so the downside of this is minimal. I think the base crit chance of Spark, it's listed here, is 9%, so it's effectively crit damage is 100% bonus, so it equates to about a 9% damage every crit averaged out. So 30% is quite a bit more than that. And there's nothing really better at support gem level 1 to beat this. Flame Wall persistence basically makes the flame wall last longer, so you have to spam it less to be able to put more sparks through it. And I really enjoy using Fortress, which creates a circle around you, and what that allows you to do is to basically cast it either on yourself or on a mob, surround them, and it makes it much easier to get your sparks to pass through everything. Maybe I would actually show you, find somewhere where I actually cast it so you can see it a bit better. You can tell I'm doing this unscripted. Oh, there you can see. There you go. So that about covers it in terms of what you'll be doing for the better part of the first act. Your skill rotation, as you kind of saw in a few of those clips, if I just play it again, is you'll be putting down your flame wall and casting sparks through it. Please ignore the Orb of Storms ability, which I'll get to a bit later, but you'll be placing down your flame wall and shooting sparks through it. So you really want to be mindful of your positioning. Like I said, you'll be either casting the flame wall in yourself or around the mobs. Obviously, the benefit of casting on the mob itself is that the flame wall does its own little bit of damage as well. The other key thing you want to be doing early game in terms of itemization. I highly recommend very early on picking up every single blue and yellow piece. The reason for this is what you want to be doing is not disenchanting these, but actually selling them to the vendors. Gold will be quite useful in the early days for buying items from the vendors or for gambling. Before you get the hooded one, the NPC unlocked, you can be a little bit more selective with the blue items. Leads me to a point it's worth mentioning. The items sell more when they're identified. Basically, the equation is something along the lines of the rarity plays a factor and then the number of stats on the item in terms of how much it sells for, which is why yellows sell for quite a bit. So you want to be IDing everything before you sell it. What the hooded one does is actually allows you to ID everything for free, so you don't need to pick up wisdom scrolls or spend, I think it's 25 gold early on to actually get the scrolls to ID things. But that's beyond the point. Basically, sell everything, you're going to need the gold. One thing as well you want to start doing probably around, I think it was around level 7 or 8, or, just keep an eye on Una. She's one of the NPCs in Clearfell, and you want to be looking for an upgrade for your wand. And what I actually find is she gives you quite a few choices between wands or staves, don't know how to pronounce it. I was actually quite lucky on this playthrough and I found a +2 to lightning skills. And as you can imagine, that provides quite a bit of a DPS boost. But there's plenty of other good options beyond plus lightning skills or plus all skills. Extra damage, keyword there being extra, I think the way it's worded is extra damage is fire damage or cold damage. Basically, it's a multiplicative DPS source. Likewise, any wand or staff with a lot of spell damage on it, you basically just want to be looking for upgrades early on, because while you're in human form, you're going to be quite reliant on those upgrades to your weapon in terms of your DPS output. The other point worth highlighting is if you get lucky and start to find exalted orbs quite early on, and it is possible, do not use your higher level currency for crafting at all. The only exception to these being the transformation and augmentation orbs, which are used for crafting normal items and blue items. The main reason for holding on to the currency is like I said at the very beginning of the video, we will be doing trading. So you will need that currency. So pretty much you're going to continue through Act 1 using Spark Flame Wall. The other ability you'll get, I think it's Uncut Gem level 3, is Orb of Storms, which you see me placing here. What Orb of Storms does is it's another ability which provides its own DPS, but more importantly supplements Spark. Is if you read the text, the key piece of text you want to read here is it fires a bolt every 2.5 seconds and when using a lightning skill near the orb. Spark being a lightning skill, and we're going to be spamming it quite a bit, so placing an orb down, every time you're going to cast that spark, it's also going to trigger one of the Orb of Storms bolts. So really does complements Spark well and is quite a significant boost to your DPS, especially on rare mobs and bosses. The other major milestone or important point to note within Act 1 is within, I believe it's called, got a little bit of a campaign reference cheat sheet in terms of campaign buffs that you'll receive. In Thraithorn, the King of the Mists boss, which is actually the one that you see me fighting here in this video, what this guy actually drops is he provides your first source of spirit. Spirit is another resource which you have to manage. The figure actually pops up here underneath your mana once you have it. And it basically what it allows you to do is to run persistent buffs or auras which you basically toggle on and off. And the key one we want to be getting once you do actually get that spirit and that first uncut spirit gem is Raging Spirits. Basically what this does is it complements the Flame Wall ability. What happens is once you cast Flame Wall, what happens is, I should be able to jump ahead a little bit here and actually show you. It actually spawns these little flame spirits which attack mobs. It's a bit hard to see in the shrubs there, but you can kind of make them out. This is pretty much the only damage orientated spirit buff that is available this early on, at least for the build that we're working with. And it actually does provide some pretty handy DPS. The one change in playstyle that you kind of want to do at this point is, I believe each flame wall is limited to spawn 5 spirits, and the Raging Spirits ability in itself is capped at 10, so you want to cast 2 flame walls at least to get the full amount of Raging Spirits up. And I believe you can kind of see me doing that here. 1, 2, then I put down my other abilities and fire sparks through the mobs. That pretty much covers it for Act 1 in terms of playstyle, what you want to be doing in terms of items. In terms of what you want to wear, honestly, anything that you can actually equip. Don't get too carried away with bumping up your strength and dexterity to try and wear some more harder to, some armor pieces or evasion related pieces. You're probably going to be more focused towards the int-based pieces, which are either the armor, energy shield hybrids, or just the energy items. Going on to your next milestone in terms of what you'll be doing while playing through Act 1. I mentioned Exalted Orbs earlier and that you want to hold on to them. What you actually, and this is really important, what you want to do once you get your first Exalted Orb is load up the trade site and start looking for a unique piece called Ghost Rife. And this is basically it. This is a mandatory piece, I would say, for this whole build. The whole playthrough pretty much centers around the assumption that you get this. At the time of recording, there's quite a lot of these listed, and it's quite easy to pick one up for one Exalted Orb, so hence why I say once you get that first Exalted Orb, start searching for this. Before I dive into the whys, I'll give a very quick demonstration. Basically, this trade site is an official trade site on the Path of Exile website, so you don't have to worry about using third-party sites. And basically, it's linked directly into your game. So what you'll do, just to give a very quick demonstration, you'll select Ghost Rife. What I like to do is filter by time listed, being up to an hour ago. You're more likely to find someone that'll actually respond to you. You want to cap the buyout price at 1 Exalted Orb, because that's what all you have. and all you do is click search. And as you can see here, as I mentioned, there's quite a few to choose from. So there's 11 results in the last hour. I expect these may potentially go up in price the more popular demon form gets. So why I want to stress, you really want to be searching for this as soon as possible. Handy little feature as well, if you're having struggles getting people to reply, is to just activate the live search, and this will basically just sit there and actually pop up items as they're listed, so you can be one of the first people to respond. Otherwise, just keep hitting the refresh button to refresh. So, why is this important? This item serves, well, three purposes really. It provides you with energy shield from your max life. So that's the main stat you're looking for here. This is fantastic even before you have demon form, because there's not a lot of methods within the game to actually scale your maximum life, whereas there is plenty, especially in the passive tree and very early in the passive tree, to scale energy shield. So you're basically taking a chunk of your HP pool and converting it to a source which you can scale to much greater amounts, providing you basically a lot more defense, and it's quite significant early and makes the campaign tremendously easier from a defensive point of view. Not only that, it obviously provides quite a bit of energy itself. 100 to max energy shield early on is quite a lot. And the third thing it solves is chaos resistance, which is hard to come by, and is generally quite problematic as well. Poison is considered chaos damage and does quite a bit early on. The other reason we really want this is related to demon form, and I won't go into that just now. I'll dive into that and show you a little bit of math once I actually get to the demon form milestone. One more important, well, super important point to note in Act 1 is there is a campaign buff in Ogham Manor, and it is from a boss called Candlemas. And what he provides is these item drops, which when you consume them, boost your maximum life. It is very important if you really want to min-max your demon form build to not kill this guy and to consume those quest rewards that drop. Demon form is very much centered around lowering your maximum life, which, like I said, I'll dive into the reasons why. But for now, just know, do not kill this guy. If I can actually find him, I think I've already just killed him here. You may need to bear through a little bit of lead up. I can't jump straight to the direct point. One thing I'll mention, another reason why you don't want to kill him is I made the mistake of killing him thinking that I could pick up the crest reward and just put it in my storage, in my stash tabs for later on. While I'm going through the maps, why not just pick it up? It's always there in my stash if I ever want to use it or try a different build later on. One problem with that is, we're coming up to him just now so you can see what the boss that I'm talking about. One big problem about picking up that quest reward is it is considered a quest item, and quest items you cannot actually do anything with in terms of removing it from your inventory. You can't drop it, you can't destroy it, you can't put it in your stash. So basically I've been running around the whole campaign with this item in my inventory and I can't do anything with it. And just to illustrate that point, if you can kind of have a look at the skill rotation that I use to kill bosses. Candlemas's Essence, that's the item I'm talking about. You can see I pick it up here, got lucky, got an Exalted Orb as well. And I think I TP back into town in a moment and I try and get rid of it. Let's see if I'm doing it here. I'll try and drop it. Nope, can't. Basically, I won't want to waste too much time. You can't do anything with it, so once you pick it up, it's stuck there in your inventory and you don't want to consume it. So just don't kill the boss. You can always go back later on if you ever want to try a different build, kill him. You know, you can always backtrack and kill him later. So we're going through Act 1. In the background, we're looking for, at the trade site, looking for Ghostwrite. Basically what you'll do, so in terms of how to use the trade website, you'll basically click this direct message, direct whisper. I don't have it enabled at the moment because I don't have the game running. And it, like I said, links directly into the game. It'll send a direct message to the seller. What they'll do is they'll invite you to their party. Either you TP to them if you can, or they'll TP to you. They'll initiate the trade. You put in the one exalted orb. They give you the item, and you're done. So once you actually have Ghostwrite, and this, like I said, this whole guide assumes that you get it relatively early on, and by that I mean somewhere early stages of Act 2, you kind of want to be getting it, otherwise you're going to start struggling with defenses and you're going to have to do different routes in terms of how to manage your defenses. Once you get to Ghostwrite, you're going to pivot quite a bit. And it's actually, forgot to mention earlier, got a few variants here in the Maxroll to actually show you the skill tree. Backstep, I apologize. While you're playing through Act 1, this is my recommended starting passive tree. What you're effectively focusing on is spell damage. Cliche, the best defense is offense. The quicker you kill things, the easier your time's going to be, and also the quicker you fly through things. There's no penalties for death besides starting the map over. Don't even really need to start the map over. I believe the mobs just respawn. The maps are quite small in Act 1, so it's not an issue. You're basically picking up all the spell damage and pathing to this cluster here. One very quick point I will mention about the passive tree. People, when they see it initially, they get quite daunted by it. Don't think, one thing that will help you a lot is use the search feature in-game to find things that you need. And do not think about nodes individually. Think of them as clusters. Typically things are grouped together in bunches. So you can kind of even see that at a higher level, where things are kind of grouped together, and these nodes which are kind of grouped together will all generally be centered around a specific stat or defense. So for instance here, you'll see everything will be spell damage related. This cluster over here will be all mana regen related, and so forth. So it kind of really simplifies things. So like I said early on, you want to be looking for spell damage. There's a cluster of spell damage nodes here, and there's a cluster here. Say you have mana regen issues later on, there's a cluster over here, there's a cluster here, and so forth. Energy shield, once you get to it, there's a cluster here, and so forth and so forth. Anyway, I'm rambling on. This will be a starting passive tree. The main focus here, as I said, is you want to be getting spell damage. Once you get your Ghostwrite, what you'll be doing is getting the very accessible and close by energy shield nodes. So that is particularly this cluster down here, which has the added benefit of also buffing your mana regen, which is quite important early on to manage spark. But it gives you a massive amount of energy shield, especially this node. You're already getting a few energy shield nodes by pathing up through here. And then you're also getting all of these down here. Ghost Rife coupled with just these clusters here will give you in the range of about 100-200% more HP or effective HP than you would have had just from the max life that you had. Moving on, like I said, you'll have Orb of Storms. You should be starting to get enough support gems to fill that out as well. Some of the support gems you want to get for that is quite open-ended, but two that I like to run is Magnified Effect. It basically makes the orb area that you need to stand in to fire the extra bolts bigger, and extra shock chance. Shock is a debuff which I believe provides 20% extra damage to any mobs that it's applied to. So kind of handy. The other thing you want to be doing once you get Ghost Rife and switching to Energy Shield is to change out your Raging Spirit buff and switch to Grim Feast. What Grim Feast provides is every time that a mob dies, there is a 50% chance it'll drop this little kind of essence on the ground, which if you pick up, it provides you Energy Shield. And one of the key things as well here is that it actually allows your Energy Shield to overflow. So you can actually go, if you're clearing things quick enough and not taking a lot of damage, you can actually double your effective Energy Shield. That's pretty much in terms of what you'll be doing in the passive. This, like I said, this is early Act 2. In terms of itemization, some important notes once you start to get into Act 2 is you want to be looking out for plus life regen gear. And this again leads back into something that's important for demon form, which I'll dive deep into later. But basically, to give you a very quick idea, demon form, for every second that it's activated, degenerates your life. And you basically need plus life regen gear to combat that. So it's very important to start keeping an eye out for that. If the gear that you find at the given point in time is a downgrade to the current things you're wearing, just stash it and keep it for later. Another key item that you want to look out for is, I can't remember what it's actually called, life per enemy killed on gloves, for the very same reason. It's basically to provide a life leeching source while you're clearing maps and to help keep your demon form active for as long as possible. On the point of demon form, I'll quickly show the ability here, which I should have showed earlier, but the third point there is what I'm talking about. You lose 0.5% of your life per second while in Demon Flame. And the whole goal is to maintain demon form for as long as possible while you're working through the campaign. You have no way of capping it. Not that you necessarily even want to. You get the max benefit the higher up, the more demon flame you get, because for every demon flame you get more spell damage. But like I said, I'll dive deeper into demon form and its ins and outs in a moment. While you're working through Act 2, you'll come across a mob called Balbala, I believe, something around that. You'll be around level 22 at this point. I'll try and actually find the video. I don't have... Probably be quite tricky to find on the fly. Apologies, I'll leave this running in the background anyway. Basically, it's a boss that you'll come across in a set of caves. And what they'll do is it'll drop this quest coin item. Don't know how to pronounce it, Diani or something like that. The quest will actually pop up on the right here. You can actually see it here. Send the power. Use the desert map to travel to the Trail of Secamus. And this is your quest for your first ascension. Like I said, you'll kill the boss which drops this item around level 22. Unless you're experienced and you've done the trial before, I would probably recommend waiting and over leveling a few levels. I believe I did it around level 26 or so. I'll just try and jump ahead. You can see me running through it here. Basically, it's a set of rooms which you progress through to do your ascension. I won't dive into the details and tips of how to do the trial itself. Recommend looking for other YouTube sources. I'm pretty sure there will be a lot. And once you've completed this, you'll get access to your demon form. I'll try and find it. Okay, here we go. This is just the last boss. We'll just watch through this. I'll start talking about what happens once you actually do get that ascension. You will actually be pivoting quite a lot and doing a little bit of respecking of your passive tree. As we kind of glimpsed earlier, the way demon form works is you'll cast it, it'll transform you, and while you're transformed, every second you'll get a debuff which starts to grow. You'll see it in the top left here. And as it stacks, you start to lose more life, but as it stacks, you also get a lot of spell damage. The implication of this in terms of your build is you want to get those stacks right up, and because you get so much spell damage due to those stacks, it basically makes spell damage not worth getting in your passive tree, because the amount you get from your demon form completely supersedes it. So you're better off using those passive tree points to put into defense and to buff your energy shield, basically. Okay, you can see here me picking the ascendants. There's a little cool animation. Why am I still looting? And then you choose demon form. In terms of giving you a bit of a quick jump ahead and a glimpse into how that actually looks. You can see here, I'm in demon form, and this is what I was talking about. You'll start to see this counting up. And what you'll be doing, depending on how much life regen you have, is you'll be trying to manage that so that that number gets as high as it can. Because the higher it gets, the more damage you're going to be doing. So, the nitty-gritty now. Why is life regen so important? Little bit of time for a little bit of math. So, life regen for demon form, you can basically think of as your damage stat. Don't read it as the more life regen I have, the more defenses I have. The more life regen you have, the more DPS you're going to be outputting. The reason for this is, to make the math simple, if I have 1,000 life and each stack takes 0.5% per second, that equals 0.5% of 1,000 is 5 life per second. So as that debuff grows, first second you'll be taking 5 life per second, next you'll be getting 10, 15, 20, 30, etc., etc. Life regen on gear is a static value. So while this is percentage based, your life regen on your gear isn't changing. So what happens, there's two factors here. First, when we talked about Ghost Wrath, so I'll be jumping around a bit and this may be a little bit go over a few people's heads, but hopefully I'll explain it well enough. As I mentioned when I was talking about Ghost Wrath earlier, the key stat here is the 50% of maximum life being converted. What this does is effectively you lose half of your max life. What this results in is, if we use this figure as an example, rather than now this being 1000, it's 500. And that 0.5%, rather than being 5 life per second, is now 2.5. So all these values go down, etc., etc. Say you had 100 life per second life regen through your gear pieces. In the first scenario, having 1000 health, you'll basically get through, 20 stacks before you start to see an impact and start to see your health go down, because this 100 life per second is basically counteracting the first few stacks. So once this gets to 100, which is 20 stacks, only at that point will you start to see your life slowly creep down, creep down by whatever the difference is here. So 21 stacks will start to drain 5, 10, etc., etc. And you'll slowly see your life go down quicker and quicker. So the lower you can get your maximum life, the TLDR, the short way to describe it is the lower your maximum life, the bigger impact your life regeneration on your gear has. And that's what you'll see a lot of endgame build guides focusing on. There's other uniques which lower it. There's passive tree nodes which lower it. So you basically want to be getting your max life as low as possible while bumping up your gear life regen, and it basically equates to more stacks that you can build. And looping back to why I said think of life regen as your damage stat, the more stacks you're getting, the more spell damage per stack that you're getting. So early on, you can see here I'm running gear that I've just found basically off the ground and in vendors. I'll quickly, jump ahead. I think I actually did a screenshot of what I was actually running once I hit level 27. So you can see here, my maximum life is 200, or about 200, and my life per second is around 16. So a little bit under 10%. So I think that equates to roughly around 18, 20 stacks, close to it, bit less before I start to see an impact. So hopefully we'll kind of see that here. I'm running through the Dreadnought, I believe this is, which is notorious for being a bit difficult for some people, but you'll see how I just basically melt through these packs. Life regen, my life pool isn't really moving yet. You can see now at around 20 stacks, like I said, it starts to creep down. So this will actually be a good segue to, or a pivot to talk about playstyle while you're in demon form. As I mentioned, the whole goal is to try and maintain demon form for as long as possible. And there's three main ways, at least in the early game, to do this. First, like I said, most importantly, your gear, life regen. Secondly, you'll be using your life flask quite liberally. The longer you can hold out before actually using it, the better, to get the maximum effect. And just quickly here, you can kind of see already with very poor gear, I'm managing to get up to 70 odd stacks, and that's in large effect due to that unique chest piece really cutting my life down. And also quickly, like I mentioned, to loop back to a previous point, how big you can get your energy shield by buffing that conversion amount. You know, keep in mind this is like level 27 odd in Act 1, and I'm already running, you know, 1500 energy shield. And there's no trading done yet beyond that chest. Another reason you can kind of see my health jumping up here is I was quite lucky as well. I found some gloves with the stat that I mentioned earlier, this one. Life per enemy killed, I think it was around the 20 or so life per enemy killed. So which is why you can see here, as I'm killing packs, as the stats get a bit higher. Let's see if we can jump ahead a little bit. You can kind of see this nudging up every time I kill a mob. It's significant. It's the reasons I can actually get the stacks as high as I can is because I don't have to just rely on the life flask. And what it actually also encourages is a very quick play style, which I didn't mention earlier. One of the big benefits of Demon Form as well is it upgrades the evade ability, so it can actually zoom around the map, which makes the campaign an absolute breeze, and you can really get through the large maps very quickly, especially in Act 2 and 3. But basically, you're really encouraged to go as quickly as possible from pack to pack, because the more mobs you kill, the more life per enemy killed you're gaining. You're also getting more flask charges as you kill mobs, so it really gives you an idea of the playstyle. I'll let this play out a little bit more, so you can see a little bit more what it looks like. Again, reiterating, you're placing down your Orb of Storms. I've actually, at this point, stopped using Flame Wall just for regular packs because the amount of spell damage you're getting from Demon Form, it gives you so much that I find just using Orb of Storms, or even when it gets high enough, you can just use Spark by itself, is enough. Okay, so you've got Demon Form. I think I've talked about everything. So what did I talk about here? Use your Life Flask as low as possible. Use Evade a lot. Like I said, you're pretty much not going to be walking anywhere anymore. Your whole movement is going to center around the Evade. It is much quicker than your standard movement. So spam it. You're going to, honestly, I can't stress this enough. This makes this build fully with a smooth run without wasting too much time on trade and doing certain things. I think I finished the campaign, I mean, in normal and cruel difficulty, I think around 19 hours. Easily used 3 or 4 of that idling around and just sitting on the trade far longer than I should have. It is a super, super quick build and absolutely fantastic for clearing the campaign. Honestly, once you get to cruel difficulty, it's almost a joke. You're pretty much just face checking and just zooming through everything. Anyway, I digress. And like I said, also going quick really feeds off the life flask charges and the life per enemy killed gloves. For reference, and I kind of showed it in the video, you can typically get to about 30 to 50 stacks extra on top of the point where you start to see your life go down if you're playing it right. So that's a bit of a reference for what you should be aiming for. So I think you saw in my video, I started to go down around 20, 25, and you saw one clip there of me getting up to about 80 stacks. So there's your ballpark. One little tip for bosses. I don't know if I've got any boss kills. There should be maybe a boss somewhere at the end here. Don't know if it will let me get to it. It doesn't really work. I won't waste time looking for a clip, but one tip for bosses when you've got Demon Form, a lot of the bosses have a bit of a arena in which they're in, and you can actually have a bit of time to gather your thoughts before you actually enter the arena. And one thing you can do with Demon Form is you can actually pop it outside of the area in which the boss fight starts. And just, you know, not the most exciting thing, but you just sit there for 30, 40 seconds and actually allow your stacks to build up to about 40, 50 odd, higher if you can. And basically go into the boss fight at the very last moment. And basically your spell damage will be so high because of the number of stacks that you have that, you know, with some of the lesser bosses, you can literally kill them in 1 or 2 seconds. It's an absolute joke. As I mentioned, there is a pivot in the passive tree. So we've been running human form with a bit of energy shield up until this point. What happens once you get demon form is, first thing you saw is these spell damage nodes are gone. So you're specking out of those, which will give you a bit of access to a few points. And the 2 key notable nodes that you want to path towards, at least that I would recommend, are this one, which is huge for this build. Both of these benefit us. So typically the 10% reduced maximum life would be a downside to the massive energy shield increase, but in our case it's actually further reducing our maximum life and hence further boosting the life regen we get from our gear. The other one here is again twofold benefit. Mana regen is always fantastic for this build. Spark chews up a lot. And we're getting 15% life regeneration rate, which boosts the life regeneration we get from our gear. One very quick side note, which I'll mention, which I just noticed on the tree, is you do actually early on will probably not want to be reliant on your gear to get extra strength and dexterity attributes. And you will need a few, I believe you need 25 strength, which is 4 extra strength nodes, and 20 dex, which is 3 extra dex nodes to hit support gem requirements. The more support gems you use of a certain type, the more some attribute requirements go up. I won't dive too much deeper into that, but that explains why you'll see strength and dex in some of these nodes. The next main pivot which you'll hit is once you get your first level 9 uncut skill gem. Actually, sorry, before I jump to that, I just noticed in terms of itemization once you get demon form. If you haven't had any luck finding life regen gear just through actual playthrough itself, it may be worth investing 1 or 2 exalted orbs to try and pick something up. I will stress here, don't go crazy at this point because there is a pretty significant bump up in terms of what kind of life regen values you can get later on. So it's better to save your exalted orbs for the start of cruel difficulty if you can. But if you're not finding enough gear, look at vendors, ID all your energy shield blues that drop, yellows that drop. It's a relatively common stat, so it shouldn't be too hard to at least get some. I think, like I showed earlier, I'm only running 15, 16 odd. Some pieces come with about 7 or 8 at this point, so you don't need too much. Play it by ear, whatever you feel is best. The other thing to start looking out for is you're going to start becoming a lot more dependent on your life flask to really push the higher level stacks. And one great stat to look for on flask is, I don't have a picture here and I'm not going to waste time looking for it, but it reads 0.25% charges per second, which basically means your flask can passively generate charges, which helps a lot for keeping them topped up. Helps a lot sometimes in boss fights when you're not killing things to get a few extra charges out of your flask. So I find it's a very good one to have. In terms of trading, completely optional depending on how much patience you have. You know, if you've got a dual screen, it can be easy to set up. There's two key items which you want to start potentially looking out for. These are more for endgame. You don't need them to get through the campaign, but they're getting quite difficult, or they're going up in price quite significantly due to the popularity of demon form rising. So if you can snipe one, it would be a real boon. The first one of these is Ming's Heart. If I remove this cap, you should see a few. Again, this is another item which reduces your maximum life while also providing some extra damage. There is a bit of a downside in terms of global defenses, which is why I say this is a bit more endgame orientated. But these are starting to really ramp up in price. They're all going around, I think the more realistic price is around 20, 30 Exalted Orbs. You can get luckier and find some for 10, 15. But because this is actually not a very uncommon item, you can see here 790 odd matches. I think this is in the last hour. But they're very hard to come by. The people will list them. You can see here for 2, 1 Exalted Orb. Some of those listings are bait, but you know, I have heard of people managing to snipe cheap ones. So if you have the patience for it and you want to have this, you just kind of activate a live search here. We'll see if this actually pings off a few, given how common this item is. Yeah, knowing my luck. Oh, there we go. You can see some starting to get listed here. And as I said, you know, Divine Orb, 25 Exalted Orbs gives you an idea. You know, they're going up in price. But you basically just have this sitting there and, yeah, waiting for one. Another item which you could look for is jewels. And particularly rubies with life recovery. Where is it? Can't find it when I need it. Basically, it's life recovery rate or something like that. It basically is another multiplicative way of multiplying and increasing the life regeneration on your gear. So again, those are going up in prices as well, but you know, people list them for 1 Exalted all the time, but they just go very quickly. But you can try your luck. The next pivot in terms of the playstyle and what you'll be doing is once you get your first level 9 uncut skill gem, and you'll pick basically the very first one of these that you get, you want to be picking up an ability called Mana Tempest. I'll show a bit of a gameplay using it in a moment, but just to kind of highlight what it does, these figures are a bit bloated due to the max level that Maxroll shows, but basically, it creates this kind of cloud on the ground, and if you stand at it, the short of it is anything that you cast will be empowered, do a lot more damage, and basically lightning spells will also fork, or chain and fork, but Spark doesn't chain. So it basically just leads to a lot more damage, and with some support gems, even at low levels, you get close to, I think, 70-80% more damage. And there's another big one, upside to using this while in demon form, which is that the downside of this is typically what will happen if you use this and stand at it. If you read near the bottom, 30% of mana spent while in the storm is added to this skill's mana cost per second. It will absolutely drain through your mana in typical circumstances, but demon form is currently bugged in a good way. So abuse this. Oh, if you don't want to use a bug, then you don't have to, but you're missing out. It's basically that mana drain does not work or doesn't apply while you're in demon form. So you can basically sit in this Mana Tempest indefinitely and get its massive upside with none of its massive downside. If I open up Act 3, and we can try and find some place where I'm actually using it and see some actual gameplay as well, because I've been just talking and showing a lot of spreadsheets. So basically your skill rotation will change a little bit at this point. Basically, before casting any sparks, the very first thing I'll do is jump ahead. You can see here my movement, as I mentioned earlier, just evading everywhere. You go through the maps quickly, and there you can see, first thing, Mana Tempest, second thing, Orb of Storms. We'll wait a little bit longer. Let this play out a little bit further. Oh, here's an actual boss fight. So you can see here I've entered this boss with already almost 40 stacks, and you'll see how quickly it just drops. So I place Mana Tempest, I place Orb of Storms, I place Firewall, and yeah, just insane amounts of DPS for the campaign level. Like I said, if you time it right, you can literally kill bosses in 1 or 2 seconds. Typically, as I'm running through a map, you'll notice here, I'll play a bit more footage. I've stopped using Flame Wall quite a bit. And there's one key reason for this. As much as this build is super tanky and it probably makes no real impact in terms of the campaign if you've got your gear right. Like I said, it's beyond the unique chest, you know, even really, it's not really that hard to gear anyway, so you shouldn't have any, I don't imagine, hopefully you shouldn't have any real problems, but the flame wall is just overkill, and it just creates extra ground clutter and makes it harder to see mob effects. You know, it's like I said, bit of a less of an issue during the campaign, but during the end game, when there's things that can literally one-shot you, it's a good habit to get into and to not use it too often. You just really save it for bosses when you really want that extra bit of DPS push. The Mana Tempest and Orb of Storms, you don't even need the Orb of Storms, arguably. You could just put down Mana Tempest and just cast Spark will be enough to clear all your normal and rare mobs nice and quickly. Now you can actually see here in game, just proof that of where I've actually gone with the passive tree, getting these 2 notable nodes. But anyway, so that's Mana Tempest. In terms of the supports for Mana Tempest, there's 2 very good ones. That being premeditation, which is, like I said earlier, there's supports which boost the damage even further. This adds another 15% just off the bat. And murderous intent, which adds culling strike. I can't mouse over it here, I don't think, but basically what culling strike does is once mobs hit a certain threshold in their life, it just kills them all, flat out. I believe it's 30%. At 30%, normal mobs will die. Blue mobs at 20, rares at 10, it kind of ramps down, and even applies even to bosses. You'll kill them at 5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but during the end game, it's very handy. So basically, you've almost, well, not always, you've pretty much got the core of your build set up at this point. In terms of your passive tree, where you work from here, the next 2, you'll be pretty much hitting these 2 points at pretty much a close to Act 3. The first one I'd probably path towards is this one if you've got mana struggles, because it adds a bit of mana regen. Otherwise, here there is a big max energy shield node with some intelligence, but there's also a bit of mana regen here. Well, actually quite a big amount, so this may be actually the better one to path to first for the big boost of defenses and big boost of mana regen. you're moving around all the time in this build anyway, so this node is just a great pickup. So yeah, just showing a little bit more gameplay. Bit more Act 3. Don't know why these videos aren't playing the first time I open them up. You can see here a bit of a glimpse. Whenever you do fall into human form, you've got two options. If your weapons are good enough, you can do a little bit of damage with them and continue on. What I tend to like to do, I pretty much stop focusing on my weapons once I get demon form, which I forgot to mention. I've got another video on this, but for the new people that are completely unaware, while in demon form, you are shape-shifted, and what that means is your weapons do not apply at all, and I mean at all. So be careful of that. I won't go into too much more details than that. I may link the video that explains it better in the description. But going back to the point, whenever you do fall back into human form, you've got two options. You can either continue on if your weapons are good enough, if you have been continually upgrading them and they put out enough damage, or you can just basically wait out the 10-15 seconds before demon form is available again and then continue on. It's completely up to you. Sometimes it's a good opportunity to go into town, sell any gear that you have, and so forth. Basically, at this point, you're going to be cruising through. You can see here, it's pretty much jump to pack. Your energy shield, you can see here. This is getting slightly to the later stages of Act 3. We're up to 2,500. Mana's not too much of a problem. You're really cruising through. You're just jumping and evading everywhere. Honestly, I cannot stress this enough how quick this build is for clearing the campaign. It's just a godsend. I couldn't imagine doing the campaign on a different character now. Once you've finished Act 3, you can probably jump to a bit of a boss fight here at the end. And watch this while I say. Up until this point, like I said, you've been saving your currency, and by that I mean your exalted orbs, hopefully. I had, off memory, I think about 12 or so. I haven't played through the campaign. This is just my second time playing through the campaign. First time after the patch buffs, which dropped the rate, buffed the rates. So I have no idea if I was lucky or not, but 12 seems like a reasonable amount. And what you'll be doing once you finish the normal mode and once you get to Clearfell in Cruel is it will be shopping time. This is obviously completely optional. You could continue if you want to be a bit more puristic. I'd question why you're playing on Trade League. You should be probably playing on Solo Self-Found, but each to their own. You'll basically be doing a big shopping spree, and the reason for this is you'll be around level 45, and I think the two breakpoints are level 46 for certain pieces and level 48 for others. You start to get into a new higher tier of what life regeneration can roll on gear, and you can get some pretty significant upgrades. So just let this play out for those that are a little bit more curious to see some actual gameplay. You can see here, Mana Tempest, Orb of Storms, and then, like I said, for bosses, Flame Wall for the extra damage. And you can see as the stacks go up, just how quickly this health starts to drop. We wait for the second phase. Oh, I think this already is the second phase. Yeah, you're just done. Anyway. Yep, shopping time, Cruel, like I said, should be around level 45. Trade site time, and I'll actually show you what filters I use. So, you'll select the piece that you want. So let's start with helmet. Key thing that you want, like I said, is life regen per second. The maximum you can get, level requirement, you want to max at 48. And the maximum life regen you can get at this point is 23, I believe. So I actually like to be quite aggressive because these pieces, from my experience, are relatively cheap. You can find plenty of choices for one Exalt. I'll set this to 22, sometimes even 22 and a half to really get the top end of that range. The other thing you want to be doing is you do not want maximum life on the item. Like I said, you want to actually be lowering your life, so you want to avoid maximum life on your gear. Again, we want to list by relatively not long ago, say 3 hours, and we want to cap this at 1. And then you just search. And like I said, plenty of options, 14 to be specific. The next thing you want to do is, I don't know how, there's probably some way of doing this through the filters, but I haven't come across it, is you want to kind of potentially order by energy shield, because you just want the energy shield pieces because you want to be very mindful of the requirements in terms of the attributes. We're pretty much stacking int, and we're not going to have more strength or dexterity beyond what we need for our support gems. And you don't really want to start investing passive points into ridiculous amounts of strength or dex, at least in the early game, because more int means more mana, and your gems, as you upgrade them, will actually require more intelligence as well. So a bit unlucky in this case. There are no helmets which are purely energy shield based, but there's typically some listed, so just be patient. Like I said, I actually spent, I think, about an hour or two once I hit cruel difficulty, just being a little bit more selective about the pieces I wanted to choose. Other things you want to kind of look out for, which are added bonuses, are boosting up energy shield, but probably most importantly, resistances. You probably want at least 1 resistance on each piece. 2 is ideal. Resistances and life regen are suffixes, and you can get up to 3 suffixes. So technically you could get life regen plus 2 resistances on each piece in terms of your helmet, boots, belt, I believe rings and amulets as well. Rings are capped a little bit lower with life regeneration. I think they cap it around 15 or 16, so just be mindful of that. Belts and amulets, I think, are still capped at 23 at this point, but they can actually go into higher tiers in later levels. So if you're playing through Cruel and want to get even better gear, amulets and belts can be your sources for that. And that about covers it. You just want to be getting your life regen and resistances up. I believe I may have a clip which shows you the gear pieces that I managed to find. I think this may be it. No. Typical. You can see here, this will actually show you one of the processes of actually getting a piece of gear. Just message someone through the trade site, they send me an invite. I TP to them. They come to me. They initiate the trade, you accept, put in your 1 exalted, which you shouldn't be spending more than that. And you're done. Always nice to say thank you afterwards. Great name for the video, Thick Mama. Anyway, I didn't pause during mouse over, but it's a bit annoying I don't have the video available. Anyway, sorry, apologies, I won't waste time on that. Basically, I think I managed to get my max resistances through all the pieces to at least 40% or so each. And I believe I got my life regen up to quite a bit. I think it was about 40 or 50% of my max life at that stage, so quite significant. You obviously don't need to go to those levels. but picking up at least a handful of pieces. The other one, which is worth highlighting on gloves, as I mentioned, gloves actually is an interesting one. It's a good one to highlight. Doesn't have life regen on it, but it has life per enemy killed. So that's what you want to be searching on. And I'd suggest probably value is 30 or higher. There you go. Plenty listed. 74, in fact, listed for one Exalt. As I mentioned here, there's honestly not much to talk about cruel difficulty. Cruel difficulty, honestly, once you've got the core of this build set up, and if you do a little bit of trading to get some good value life regen pieces and you get your resistances to, you know, reasonable levels, you are going to pretty much be able to honestly just face tank almost everything, and just bosses become a joke because of how high you can stack your demon flames. It is ridiculously easy, much easier than normal difficulty. 1 point during Act 3 of Cruel, you'll get 40 more spirit, which will actually take you to 100. Few options at that point to worth highlighting is you could start to pivot your spirit auras. You could pick up blasphemy and put in conductivity, which is a lightning resistance debuff on mobs, which basically means more damage, or you can put in the enfeeble curse, which means less damage to you. You could use mana remnants to get mana sources of mana recovery. You could go full YOLO mode and get Archmage if you've got ridiculous levels of mana regen available to you, and that's a massive boost if you've been stacking your mana. In terms of your passive tree, I've filled in 3 options here. What's worth highlighting is these aren't strict pathing options, so it's not a case of just pick one and follow this exactly. It just highlights the nodes in 3 different groups that are easily accessible from your core setup. So you've got your defensive nodes, which are your energy shield clusters, which are this one in particular, here, and here, I believe, and this as well. So if you're finding that your energy shield isn't big enough, or you want some extra recovery or increase its rate, these are some of the areas you want to have a look at. Conversely, if you want a bit of an extra damage boost, you won't be looking through that through spell damage. The best source I found, at least in the early game, there are other options later game, is to stack your attack speed. And again, there's a few areas for that. There's some good value attack speed nodes down here. This one is attack speed when you crit, which even though you don't have a lot of crit chance, you can pick up a little bit here, and just pathing to this gives you a bit. But with cast speed, you'll be casting so quick that even if your crit is only at about 10 to 15%, you will find this recently, I think, counts as the last 4 seconds, and you're going to be putting out 2 or 3 spark casts per second. You're almost always going to have this up. Likewise, you can path to Arcane Surge, which is a buff you can get, which lasts for, I believe, 4 seconds in this case, which procs off crit. And again, this will be proccing fast enough to make it worthwhile, which gives you a multiplicative source of increased cast speed, which you can further buff here with increasing the effect of Arcane Surge. More cast speed here as well. So if you want more damage, these are some options. Cast speed down here as well. I think this one actually gives you Chaos Resistance as well, which is extra bonus. Lastly, if you're having mana troubles and need more mana regen, there's some nodes here. There's a big cluster of mana regen down up here. There's 2 extra little ones down there. There's this area here and this cluster here. Again, similar. Arcane Surge also gives you mana regen multiplicatives, so it's also great. And a little bit here. So like I said, these are just highlighting different nodes. You know, play it by ear, whatever play style or whatever your gear demands are. There are a few options. And I think that about covers it. long video, a lot of rambling, not a lot of gameplay showed. I apologize for that, but hopefully you found it informative. I like to dive deep and explain things and why things are chosen for and how they work. So yeah, that's about it. All in one take as well. Hopefully this came out okay. I apologize for any rough spots, and like I said, a few points where I didn't have videos prepared and couldn't find something. But if you found this video helpful, I don't like it typically when people say this in YouTube videos, but throw a like and a subscribe. It does help support the channel. And yeah, have fun. Good luck. Feel free to leave any comments in below. I do try to be proactive in answering any questions. And happy hunting. All the best.